Okay, we're here with Riley, and Riley likes to pull on the leash. And we just spent about 2 hours going over the importance of rules and structure, how to reward dogs for desired behavior, the benefits of positive dog training. In this video, we're going to go over how you can teach your dog to stop pulling on the leash. Now, pulling on the leash is a very common problem for dogs. Dogs have something called an opposition reflex. If you, just like us, if I put my finger down my throat, I'm going to gag. It's a gag reflex. I have no control over it other than not putting my finger down my throat. Well, for dogs, they have an opposition reflex. They are programmed to pull against us. So if we're walking our dog on a leash and it gets out of position, we pull them, we're going to make them pull more. And they don't have a choice. And so the more you pull your dog, the more your dog's going to pull, the more frustrated you get, the more frustrated the dog gets, and after a while, the dog doesn't like going over rocks, and neither will you. In this video, like I said, we're going to go over the tips and tricks. Now, the first thing we need to do is I'm going to use a clicker for this, for part of this, I should say, to teach the dog which side to be on. Now, before we use a clicker, the clicker is used to indicate the exact second the dog did something we want. Now, I used to not use a clicker. I only would mark when the dog did the final complete move. So if I'm training the dog to sit, let's say I'm training the dog to roll over. Well, what I would do is try to lure the dog into a down position first. As soon as it get down, I would click to indicate that moment of laying down was what I wanted to do. Now, it also should represent the positive reinforcement is coming as quickly as we can get it to you. So I'm using the chicken liver treats that I usually like to use, and the first thing we have to do is prime the clicker to build an association between the two. So I'm just going to throw a treat on the ground. Every time the dog licks it up, I click. Sometimes you don't have to do this each time. You just want to do this the first couple times. And sometimes you can also do what we call a jackpot. I've got 3 treats here. So however you feel comfortable while doing it. One thing you never want to do is to give the dog's attention like a remote control. That is the worst way to use a clicker. The clicker means that you just did exactly what I want and a treat is coming into your mouth as soon as I possibly can put it there. Now the first thing I'm going to do, I want to prime the clicker even though this is for the second step. First thing I want to do is teach the dog not to pull on the end of the leash. Now like I said, dogs have what's called an opposition reflex. Come here, sweetheart. Yeah, see how she moved a little bit slow there? That's what I was talking about off camera. Dogs, sometimes that's a warning or I'm not sure what we're doing. Now she's sniffing around. Are there more treats there? What I'm going to do is I'm going to get her to come over here. Come here, sweetheart. Now you want her on your left side, is that correct? Or your right side?
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to put my hand through the leash. I'm going to have a couple of these treats with me. We're going to walk towards the camera so you guys can see it. So what I'm going to do, and we'll see if she does it, of course. She might not do it. There we go. So as soon as she walks in front, I stop, and then I'm going to ask her to come over here by flashing the treat and try to do a bigger movement like this. And I'm only going to give it to her when she is on this side of the seam of my pants. If you hold it in front, then you're going to teach her to return to you in the front. I'll try that again. Here, sweetheart. Oh. There you go. Come on. Come on. Come here. There we go. We're going to do one for the effort. There we go. Oh. Come here. There we go. So as soon as she walks in front of me, I stop, I lure her, I make a kissing sign, or I lure her however I want. There we go. You can do for her, she's a little bit sketchy right now. I'm not sure why. I haven't pulled the leash out yet, so maybe it's a leash related thing. So as soon as, when I'm walking her, as soon as her chest, let's position so people can see from the side. Come here, sweetheart. Yes. So when we're walking, I want her, you're being very difficult about this camera angle, aren't you? Sit. So, stay. I thought you had to stay. Come here. All right, so what we want to do is let's try that again, is I want her shoulder aligned with my hip. And you can see she's all over the place. She doesn't know what we're doing. In this point of the video, or the technique, all I want the dog to know is as soon as I get to the end of the leash, come back to the human. So as soon as her chest gets here or in front of me, I just stop and I plant my feet like a tree. Now she's going to go and she's going to get to the end of the leash and it's going to get tense. As soon as she gets to the end of the leash, then I make a kissing sound and then ask her to come over here. And I deliver the treat, again with her back on this side. Now usually when you're doing this outside, we're inside because I wanted just to go through all the steps and I didn't want the lighting to freak out. So the idea is, the other little trick is when we go on a walk, we're thinking the end of the walk or however long the walk is. And that creates a little bit of an issue. And the next step, we're going to teach her to walk on this side instead of what she's doing now. So basically, when we're going on a walk, if we're thinking about the destination, the dog doesn't walk where we want, we get frustrated. So what I would have you do is we're in an apartment complex, so when there's nobody out and about, that's the best time to practice this. Go out instead of walking around the building, go out right in front and walk 25 paces that way. And when you get 25 paces, turn around and go 25 paces on that side of your door. So you're just walking a 50 pace section over and over. You're walking back and forth. Well, now you've taken out the baggage of I'm thinking I'm going here or how long we're going. You're saying we're going for 10 minutes. After a while, the dog's like, I've already sniffed here, I've sniffed there, I've peed here, I've peed there, I got nothing new. So the dog is able to closer pay attention to you. And again, as soon as it stops, you don't say anything, no corrections, you stop, let the leash get, relax your arm until the leash gets tense. As soon as it gets tense, make a kissing sound, and then lead the dog over here. And you can toss it like that if she keeps on doing what she's doing and stopping in front of you. The whole point is we want her behind the seam when she gets the treat. Okay, so after a while, your dog will get to the end of the leash and automatically turn around and come back to you. But it's going to take, it depends on how much you practice before she actually starts doing that. All right, so now, so that you want to that teaches the dog to stop pulling on the leash. And while you're doing this, do not pull her back in position. Use a treat to lure her, like I am right here, because the more you pull her, the more you're going to make her pull against herself. It's not something she's doing intentional. She has no choice. All right, the last little step that we're going to do for this part of the video is we're going to teach her which side to walk on. Now, the guardian wants her to walk on the right side. I'm going to probably get dizzy doing this, so I'm only going to do it a couple of revolutions. What you want to do is walk in circles around the dog. Now, first, as soon as the dog looks at me, I'm going to click and then drop a treat. After a while, I'm going to ask her to take one step towards me, and then I click and drop a treat, then 2 steps towards me. And eventually, she's going to start walking around me. Now, again, I'm going to get dizzy if I do small circles here, so I'm going to do it like 2 or 3 times just to show you for demonstration purposes. But when you have a space to do it, like in a dog park, at the apartment complex, there's nobody there. That's let her go in and sniff and get her sniffs off first, then practice this. All right, there we go. So she's sitting. All right, starting to get dizzy. Now see how she's backing up? There we go. So again, we're limited in space because of the room. You'd want to be doing about a 20-foot circle, but if the dog loses interest, then go back to where this dog is and do a tighter circle around it. But eventually, as you saw, she started kind of following me. After a while, we're just teaching the dog, I want you on this side. And when you go to this side, if you look at me when you're on this side, you get a click and then a treat. After a while, you take a step towards me, you get a click and a treat. Then 2 steps, and eventually she'll start walking next to you. Make sense? All right. And you notice for this part of the clicker of the training the dog, we're doing it without a leash. So that's why you want to do it at your dog park, or if you have a friend or somebody that has a fenced-in yard, do it in their yard. So, but always when you're going in a new location, give the dog a good 10 minutes or as long as she wants to sniff around. Don't try doing it when she wants to sniff somewhere, because she's just going to get frustrated. I haven't sniffed everything completely. Go over to your friend's house, let her in the backyard, let her do her thing, and hang out with your friend until she comes to the door. That's the time that you want to go out and start practicing. All right, the next stage, and this is, I'm doing a very, very abridged version because this is an in-home session. This is stuff that you would want to spread out, and you want to keep on practicing the back and forth until she gets to the end of the leash, she automatically comes to you. Only at that point will you start doing this next step. Now, next step is I want to teach the dog where to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk holding the treat on my seam. There we go. Try that again. We'll change angles. See, I'm going to get backlit if I go too far over there. So there we go. So I'm holding her. And I'm encouraging her that she comes in this position, she gets a treat. Now, I'm not saying the word heel yet. Eventually, this is the stage where I could start saying heel. When I'm just delivering them, I'm delivering basically every other step. And you might have to deliver every step initially, until the dog is just following you around wherever you go, because you're like the Pied Piper of treats. You're dropping treats into my mouth. And again, I'm holding it on the seam. So the dog's nose is here, but this is the heel position, is we want the dog behind the heel. So after you've done this for a while, the dog's gonna start walking. If I'm the dog and the human's here, I'm gonna start walking around looking at the human. I'm not paying attention to my environment, I'm watching the human to see if I'm getting another treat, which is why at first when you're doing this, you're doing every step or every other step. Now when I'm doing it, I'm crossing my body, which is kind of a no-no in dog training, but I find for this, it's just the easiest way to go about it. All right, so the next stage, let's come back over here, sweetheart. Yes, you are good and treat motivated. Is I'm going to do this. And if you notice, I pulled it up here, and then I immediately went down to give it to her. Now, it seems kind of counterintuitive when we pull it up, because we're kind of pulling it away. What we want to teach the dog is when the treat goes away from you, you should really like that, because that means it's about to come in your mouth. So first when I do it, come here, sweetheart, let's do it one more time. Come on. There we go. So you saw she kind of looked up at me. So first she was holding it here for a second, then going straight to her mouth. After a while, you want to hold it up here for 1 step, and then or 2 steps and give her a treat. Then 3 steps and give her a treat, 4 steps and give her a treat. Now the key to do this is not to do this when there are other people around or dogs or anything that's going to be distracting, like the truck that just showed up. I know, I just told them, don't worry, I got it under control. So I'm using this to distract her because she's a little bit reactive to people that pass by, and there's a delivery truck right outside that parked, of course, when we're doing our video. So the whole point of this is to practice again when the dog has nothing to be distracted about, and also put your dog in position to succeed. Before you do this, make sure you take your dog for a good game of fetch or playing around, some romping in the dog park or whatever it is. Burn off the excess energy. We don't want them full of beans. It's just a van. Sit. All right, so basically the idea is you're going to elongate this and go for longer and longer periods of time. I'm telling them. You can go to Lowe's and Home Depot. Those are both dog-friendly locations. There we go. So you can take your dog into Lowe's and Home Depot. There will sometimes be other dogs there, especially on the weekend. But if you're practicing this during the week or during the winter time, I have one client, she jogs at Lowe's. She goes in there and she jogs up and down every aisle, and she jogs around all the aisles, and then goes back the other direction. Those are huge stores. The other thing that's nice about them, the aisles create great practice opportunities because they can't go here or there. The aisle's like 8 feet apart. So there's not a lot of room for them to do it, and then you can start elongating how long you're holding the treat up here before you're giving the dog the treat. And the cool thing is the dog, instead of doing what she's doing now, the dog's like looking at you, running into stuff because I'm looking up to see is that treat going to be delivered. Now this is exclusively using positive reinforcement, and again, we want to do it when the dog wants to do this. So if you find that you start getting frustrated or the dog starts getting frustrated or there's distractions, pull the plug. Always, whenever possible, end on a good one, because we want the dog to have a good remembrance of it. And if you happen to have a bad experience at the end or something bad happened, sit. Get down with her, pet her a little bit down, rub her belly, do all her favorite things until you get to the point, so she has a fond remembrance. The last time we did that, it was a good activity. I really enjoyed it. All right, this is Riley, and these are some tips on how you can teach your dog to walk with a loose leash and stop pulling on the leash.